What would you say? And more importantly, what would you do with your portfolio if we were able to show you that the major on-chain data analytics, the one that almost everyone reviews on Twitter, on YouTube, and refers to as a major signal that the markets must boom, is in fact a great contrary indicator. I'm talking about the Bitcoin ETF flows. In this video, I want to show you how this has been a very good signal to do the opposite to the crowd. This is what we're seeing almost on a daily basis at the moment. New highest daily close in history. After hours open, new all-time high again. And yes, the old comment comes in and says, well, a top forms at an all-time high. It sure does. But there can be multiple all-time highs leading into that final top, as we've seen in recent history. In 2021, there was a top on January 3rd of 2022. So essentially the entirety of 2021, you had new all-time highs every other day. And then eventually you do get a market roll on the S&P 500. So the update, another daily highest close, another new all-time high. NASDAQ, another new all-time high daily close. It was a couple of points, well, yeah, 1 full point off a new all-time high price. And the market has slowed just a little within these last few hours. But again, new all-time high prices almost every single day over the last couple of weeks. Repeated, because that is one of my major theories as to why the market has not reached a new all-time high yet. But I think there is one coming. We had a very significant signal here, and that has kept the market underneath the old all-time high. We had peak euphoria at the top, and then we had peak ETF inflows. Very, very peak ETF inflows. There it is, March 12th, 13,700 inflows, and the peak of the price was on the 14th, but essentially the price didn't go much further from the 11th. It hit that price there at 73,000, and then nothing much happened from that point. You had the rollover, you had 3-day down rule, you had peak complacency here with a lot calling this the bottom, and the market is going to hit, well, Bitcoin's going to hit 80,000 or 100,000, and it just didn't happen. So yeah, personally from my analysis, it's always important to remember how the market sentiment occurred at those times, because you got the objective data here with the chart, you've got your Gann swing indicator, but when it comes to the market sentiment and the feeling and the headlines at the time, it's very hard to piece that together on top of a chart when you haven't experienced it at the time, you haven't lived through these moves themselves. So over the last 1 to 2 days, that's been a fair bit of fear that has come into Bitcoin and cryptos. And Bitcoin, again, has just hit 50%, $64,000, and closed above the major 50% of the correction, above $65,000. So a test of this range and then a close above that range. So still looking reasonably good, a little bit more volume coming into it at this stage. So really nothing to be overly concerned about when it comes to BTC. The concerning point could be if you get a breakdown of 60K. Plenty of bases formed there, so a breakdown of 60K would be probably the concerning part, back down to 56K. For now, I can't see anything too concerning as the market is testing these levels and then closing above those. How can it go further from this? We've had the move out of the banking crisis low into this peak. That was definitely some disbelief there. How could the markets go up out of a banking crisis that should have collapsed the entire market? That's over 12 months ago now. Most people probably don't even remember that level of fear that was spread throughout the markets, and they all went up from that point a long way off. Another disbelief, we had Bitcoin ETF top, and then finally another disbelief peak here, which is peak euphoria. ETF inflows are massive, the biggest that we've ever seen. Why isn't the market going up from this point? Overall, it seems like we're still in a healthy place for this cycle, especially if Bitcoin continues to consolidate at these levels. These levels being above that 60K, and eventually I think we'll get that pump out of these prices. And I've talked about that in previous videos. I suggest subscribing to the channel, like the content up, so you can see more of this in your newsfeed, and hopefully less of the moon boy stuff. On the chart, they come up with some very interesting turns in the market. The 11th, Bitcoin ETF top. So some of the biggest flows coming into the market, something for the masses to get hyped up about. actually corrected the market. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to get a collapse, but you do see turns in the market. That was your 11th of January. Now, the next one up was in February. It was around the 12th. So it's about this day here. You saw another move, one more day, and then it paused the market. So a little less than what you saw back here on the 11th of January. But nonetheless, there was still a pause in the market. And in terms of how significant that move was to get any sort of pause is a pretty big feat from the market. So you've got a huge inflow day here on the 13th. You've got the 13th of Feb right here. And then you got one more big day up and then basically a pause for that many days, 12 days. So it doesn't look like much there, but you can see what comes next. And there was a huge, very, very strong push to the upside, probably by late retail coming in. And so, as I said, to hold up the market in the midst of a pretty strong push is a pretty decent feat. Now, you get towards the peak here, peak euphoria of BTC, the top from where that signal occurred. And here it is. We're at 97 days, so getting very close to that 4 months. I know I've talked about it a lot, but I am looking at the macro cycle rather than look at the charts hourly or 4 hourly, because that's the more short term. I'm showing you the macro cycle here and how long these things do take to play out. It's hard to have that belief at that time, as many of you know from the channel, and suggest that maybe we're not going to go up from here when the hysteria was ballistic, like really ballistic. And I honestly hate those times because of the type of comments and stuff. But at the end of the day, I love helping as many people as possible. And so I put that aside, and hopefully you guys see how these signals continue to play out time and time again, even though they take some time to, again, play out in the markets. Peak complacency followed, et cetera, et cetera. So we're at 97 days. It showed up here on the chart, and then this sort of correction. At least it can help you position your portfolios a little safer, and you can sleep a little better at night once you see these signals play up time and time again. On the total cryptocurrency market cap, how this turns crypto, there is your 1st of May low, move up. There is your June 4th, move down. Here is your peak there on the 12th of May. Didn't go much further, correction. And here are your other two here. That's the February one, bit of a pause considering where it's come from and the hype around ETFs at the time. And then again, 11th of January, lower highs, market corrects into this bottom. Do I think it's over yet? No, I've said that many times before. I think we're still in a stealth move. Strong cryptos are still holding up the charts relatively well above their 50% levels. Here's your ETH move over the last couple of days. It basically bounced off those two twice here at 50% at the moment. And you still got the previous ranges that it could hold support at, which we've talked about. So there's $3,200 at the moment, holding above $3,400 at that 50% level. You've also got Solana that we've looked at, $137. You've got a bit of volume coming in, bit of a move up there, and still above these particular lows, testing this 50% at 137. And a look at Render now at 750, where this thing could head to. Still just above this particular low. And at the moment, you've got your support and resistance zone back through $3 to $5 as well. So keep an eye on these levels. You've got your 50% support and resistance zones. Do you buy the dip or do you buy the breakout, as we looked at in yesterday's video? As for Bitcoin, still holding up pretty good, and 50% levels still intact here. Remember the time frame, 4 to 6 months. Keep that in mind. That takes us out. If we were to go all the way through to the 6 months, you want your 180 days, roughly around September. So I'm looking somewhere in Q3 to give us an answer as to whether this is our reaccumulation or distribution, which would mean a collapse. I'm obviously leaning more on the side of reaccumulation at this zone to break out over in Q3. End of the day, market will tell its story. Thanks again for all of your support on the videos, and I'll be back with some more dad jokes in future content. Peace out.